Hello and welcome to the first of a new series of videos on the Detective Squirrel channel, and this is the first Squirrel Views. These will be reviews and opinions on different TV programs, films, books, whatever. We'll see how it goes. But this is the first one, and this episode is on Star Trek Discovery. Now at this point I'd like to actually put in a warning that these are my opinions, and I won't hold back. When something is shit, I will fucking say it's shit. So, you know, just as a warning, there will be language that some younger viewers probably shouldn't be hearing. Right, so here we go. Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is supposedly based in the Prime Timeline. I will come into timelines later, but it's supposed to be in the Prime Timeline, set between Star Trek Enterprise and the original series. There is a few problems already with that idea. I mean, if you look at these ships, the style and how good they look and how fancy they look and shiny they look, which ship would you think came first? The old NCC 1701 Enterprise from the original series, or these glossy looking things that are supposed to have come before? I understand that the makers of the series were going more for the feel of the aesthetic used in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek 09 Star Trek and on. But it just doesn't work. You've got ships that look like they should be in a point of time which goes beyond Next Generation, Deep Space Nine or Voyager. You know, this should be, the 25th or 26th century ships. I mean, even the series actually, it was almost like the makers of the series actually listened to the actual complaints and decided, oh, that's all right, we'll take the main ship and send it to a future time period. And so put it in a future where you've got this ridiculous looking ships which their warp nacelles are no longer connected to the actual ship themselves and just sort of float at the side of the ship. They just look stupid. How can you have a ship in separate parts all flying together? It just looks ridiculous. But that's what they did. They sent them into a bizarre looking future. But there's so many other things that doesn't work about Star Trek Discovery. It's supposed to be, like I said, in the Prime Timeline. Now the timelines diverge after, in Star Trek 09, the Verada, the Romulan ship from the future, after the destruction of Romulus, goes back in the time and to try to actually affect Spock in similar way, force him to watch Vulcan be his home world of Vulcan to be destroyed. So because the beginning of that ship, you see the birth of James T. Kirk, and his father is the captain of the USS Kelvin. This is now being called the Kelvin Timeline. Now, both in the Prime Timeline and the Kelvin Timeline, it is understood that the Klingons didn't have warp travel at first. Their first cloaking device came from the Romulans. But if we believe the Discovery plot in their pilot episode, the Klingons actually discover this ancient Klingon ship from thousands of years before, which has got warp capable engines. It's got massive firepower compared to everything else around. and it's got a cloaking device, and it's huge. The ship is huge, but it's got a cloaking device that can cover the whole bloody thing. So it completely destroys the timeline of either timeline, Kelvin or Prime. We're supposed to accept that it's in the Prime timeline, but it doesn't fit in the Prime timeline. But it doesn't fit in the Kelvin timeline either. So the whole series just doesn't work. Doesn't fit in either timeline, completely destroys anything that's already set into it. So you've got the look of the ships, you've got the fact that it completely destroys the established history of the Klingons. And that brings me to another point. This series is racist. Don't believe me? The Klingons, obviously designed to be similar, basically an African American race. They're actually they're portrayed as being aggressive warrior race, but to be led into a more less aggressive future, they have a white Klingon leading them to the light. It is racist. I mean, the Vulcans were, at least in the first season, were represented like they're mostly Asian. So it's almost like they're taking that typical terrible old cliched stereotype of the maths wizard Asian character and taking it to its most extreme, turn the whole Vulcan race, the logical thinking Vulcan race, into Asians. It is unbelievably racist, but they get away with it. It's a CBS and everything, Viacom. It's all a huge company behind it, so you can't do anything about it. They've got the character who is supposed to be representative of the anybody on the spectrum. Tilly, who's supposed to be autistic. This isn't a good representation of an autistic character. She is a horrible insult. She's just actually portrayed as, yes, she has some intelligence, but incredibly ditzy. That isn't representative of autistic people. I've had autistic friends, I know autistic people, and that is nothing like them. Is not representative of autistic people. Then comes, they actually pride themselves on the fact that they are so woke that they've got a gay couple in the doctor and the chief engineer. Well, there was a court case because some years before there was a computer game called Tardigrades. Now, the idea of the Tardigrades was these spacefaring creatures that will give you a warm hug, and actually they could travel faster than light. Discovery, the makers of Discovery, stole that idea. They stole the tardigrades, created their crappy spore drive, which also doesn't fit in any Star Trek timeline. And the characters that they claim they were so woke in actually creating a gay couple and having a gay chief engineer and a gay doctor that were in a relationship. So what? That isn't woke and it isn't actually interesting, and those characters was also stolen from the tardigrade actually game. So they try to actually say they're being representative, but the characters that they actually claim are representative are already stolen from a previous actually project. The makers of the actual small little tardigrade game tried to sue the actual makers of Discovery, but like I said, they're a huge company. They had no chance of winning that actually lawsuit, even though it's blatantly obvious. So not only did the makers of Discovery actually steal ideas, they put them into Star Trek and they don't fit into Star Trek. Everything about Discovery is crap. The standard of writing throughout, especially the first 2 seasons, was abysmal. It was horrible. It's racist, and it's the biggest pile of shite anybody has had the dishonour of putting the bloody name Star Trek on. This is worse than Star Trek 5, the Final Frontier, William Shatner's ego project, which was utter crap. The only Star Trek film which was truly crap. Star Trek Discovery is far worse. It is one of the biggest piles of shit ever to disgrace our TV screens. I said I would be blunt, and I did give a warning at the beginning that I would be blunt. This is how blunt I'm getting. It doesn't fit in any timeline of Star Trek. It doesn't work as a Star Trek project. I saw the beginning of the series where they actually were in the future. There was a couple of interesting sci-fi ideas, but it still wasn't Star Trek. It will never be Star Trek. Discovery is Star Trek disaster, and is the biggest pile of diarrhea ever to have the Star Trek name on it. It's an embarrassment. Kurtzman and his people should be embarrassed, and the people who own the actual rights of Star Trek should be embarrassed to let them produce this diarrhea. Right, I hope you enjoyed this first foray into Squirrel views, and if you did, like, share and just subscribe, and that way you will get notification of when the next video is uploaded. Thank you for joining me on this first foray into Squirrel views. This is Detective Squirrel out.